Oh, it's nice to see several people who I've also seen in the past webinars, especially since this is our wrap-up session where we're having the nice opportunity to really look back at the entire series, as well as getting some new inputs from the Rwanda context from two speakers, and I'll get into that. But yeah, keep the introductions coming. We'll just give everyone a few more minutes to join the link. Hi, Trent. Nice to see you online as well.
Hello, it's good to join.
And we very much appreciate people coming from quite different time zones. So this is early, early for the Latin American time zone, US time zones. All right, so yeah, keep the introductions coming. We'll get started in about 1 or 2 minutes. We also have quite a diversity of geographies. The UK, Ecuador, Italy, Kenya, the Netherlands, South Africa, so Rwanda. So really nice to have you all here. Thank you so much. So as you keep coming in, please feel free to introduce yourself, where you're coming from, and your organization. We're really excited to have this final wrap-up session with you from an amazing webinar series where we've had quite a diversity of speakers and covered various topics. So I'm going to just briefly go over what this webinar will aim to do. This is also a longer session because we're planning to, in addition to getting some of your questions and feedback and ideas for how to really integrate and prioritize enhancing integration of gender transformative approaches. We're really planning to highlight the key learnings. What have we discussed from July to November? To now December, I guess. But in the past series, what have we focused on in terms of the topics, and how have different gender transformative methodologies emerged in different fields in the business agribusiness context? And also, what gaps and opportunities came out of these different webinars, and how can this series really be taken further, and what learnings and experiences can be drawn from these. We will have two new panelists today, both from Rwanda, including a commercial bank and an ag tech service provider. And both of these speakers provide unique perspectives on gender lens investing. And then, as I said, we'll have the opportunity after these speakers and having one of our own, Ojong, reflect on this, and also an opportunity for past speakers to play a role. We'll really go into assessing where deeper integration is needed, what emerging questions you have, or what outstanding topics you still see worthwhile to pursue, etc. So we're really hoping for a very interactive session and engaging conversation. So I will now briefly introduce all four of our speakers today. So we'll start with Samaa Mufti. She's an impact specialist with ImpactSF. So this is the hub for sustainable finance of the CGIAR. And here she supports the integration of science-based climate and gender indicators in agri-food investments to manage risks and measure impacts. This will be followed by a presentation by Jean-Luc Masengesho. He's an agronomist and project manager based in Kigali, Rwanda, with over 5 years of experience in sustainable agriculture, agribusiness development, and climate smart farming. He has led multiple agricultural innovation projects, including the development of Shamba Assist, an Internet of Things based precision farming solution. He's also worked with organizations such as Spiderbit Limited, Greenleaf Cooperative, and Yalta. These are all organizations in Rwanda focusing on farmer capacity building, agroecological business mentorship, and technology-driven agricultural transformation. Adelphine Mudashamagira is an environmental and social governance specialist at I&M Bank Rwanda PLC, where she leads efforts to integrate sustainability and ESG principles into banking operations. With extensive experience in environmental management, climate change, and sustainable finance, she has worked with different financial institutions and development partners to promote inclusive and responsible investment. Ojongetakah is a social environmentalist with experience in gender, sociology, anthropology, international relations, and environmental science. She's currently supporting the gender equality and social inclusion activities under the CGIAR Scaling for Impact program, ensuring that inclusivity is a key tenet within scaling of innovations. And she was also previously the Jesse co-lead under the CGIAR Initiative on Diversification in East and Southern Africa, Ukama Ustawi. My name is Hannah Ewell. I'm a research specialist with the Alliance by CCIAR based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm a proud member of the Gender Transformative Research Methodologies Community of Practice, which we really invite you all to join if you haven't already. And I'll be posting that link at the end of the webinar. But I'm very excited to have you all here. And I invite you, before I hand over to Samaa, I just want to briefly announce that you have the opportunity to ask questions throughout in the chat if you'd like. And then also, I will be posting a link to the Easy Retro board. If you've participated in the past webinars, this will be familiar to you, but this is an interactive online platform where you can anonymously pose questions or also contribute to some of the discussion questions that we've posed there. So I will put that link in the chat and you're welcome to use that throughout. So after the presentation, after the speakers, we will have Ojong help reflect together with the past speakers on what this webinar series has really contributed to, and I'll be posing a question to all of the past speakers we have with us today. And then we'll go for the Q&A from all of you as well before we have Ojong wrap up the key lessons. So as I said, you can access their Easy Retro board through the chat link I just posted. And without further ado, I'm very happy to hand over to Samaa to introduce the work of ImpactSF and go over what we've done in this webinar series. On to you, Samaa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Give me a second to just share my screen. Hannah, can you confirm if this is showing up correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this introduction to the webinar session today. And I would also like to thank everyone who has shown interest throughout the webinar series, as well as to join this session today and contribute your insights to this very interesting topic. So I have this difficult task of recapping what has been shared in the past webinars from starting July this year. And well, due to time constraints, I won't be able to, go into the detail of the rich insights, like every detail of the rich insights that came forth. But I will try to summarize it and give an overview of the key topics and methodologies that were discussed, as well as some of the very interesting case studies that came out. And Hannah would be kind enough to also share the links to YouTube videos that you can access. And so if you're interested into a specific topic, you can just go to the link and hear more about what our speakers had to contribute during the discussion. Just a quick recap of the series, and as Hannah said, this initiative of the webinar series was part of CGIAR's Gender Transformative Research Methods Community of Practice, and the idea was to explore how gender transformative approaches can drive inclusive and resilient and profitable agri-food systems. And in each webinar, we had speakers from different organizations and enterprises who shared some methodologies, case studies, and lessons on how they are embedding gender equity and social inclusion within their work. And we have had 6 webinars so far, this being the 7th one. And we have had the opportunity to host about 18 speakers from diverse fields. So we have had a representative from agri SMEs, from investors, from research organizations, from DFIs. So it has been a rich group of speakers who have joined this webinar series. And over 600 participants registered for these webinars, which just goes to show how interesting this topic is, and that there is a growing need to include and to integrate gender and social inclusion, not just as a social responsibility, but also like as a business imperative that can lead to both economic growth as well as make agri-food systems more resilient. So without talking further, we'll just get to the meat of this topic and recap. So I'll be dividing it into some methodologies and approaches that were discussed, and then talking about some of the case studies that came out. So one of the key contributions of this webinar series was in terms of discussing approaches that integrate gender transformative lens into the investment life cycle. So we've had approaches that looked at the whole investment process, starting from fund design to pipeline screening to due diligence, as well as to post-investment monitoring, reporting, and verification. And we saw approaches that were on the spectrum of addressing indicators or frameworks that are related to more 2x criteria at the agri SME level, as well as more including more gender transformative indicators that look at measuring empowerment, not just in terms of numbers, but also decision making, personal agency, workload reduction, and so on. So we saw that there were approaches that looked at participatory outcome mapping, as well as post monitoring and reporting frameworks to measure the impact of investments that are being made into agri-food systems. So this was one of the key contributions made. Then what was another topic that was discussed during the webinar series was a training approach called the Gender Makes Business Sense Plus, which aims to strengthen agri-entrepreneurs' business and entrepreneurial skills, as well as embed a gender transformative lens. So this approach targeted both men and women entrepreneurs, and it encouraged joint reflection in terms of gender roles, business responsibility, and household dynamics. And what really stood out in terms of this training approach was the contextual flexibility of this approach to adapt the training material to different local realities, as well as the need for training master trainers that can really integrate this approach within communities, as well as a focus on more transformative impacts that go beyond just business outcomes, but also towards household relations and community roles. Then another contribution towards the discussion around gender transformative approaches and their inclusion within agribusiness was the introduction of this typology-based methodology that is helpful for companies to better understand and engage women in value chains. And this methodology um, uh, basically proposed that women value chain actors are not a homogeneous group, but rather they have differentiated needs based on, for example, the intersectionality and the different identity markers that interact with one another, and therefore more targeted and tailored approaches are required if we want to make value chains more inclusive. And this methodology also integrated the reach, benefit, empower, and transform framework in order to identify more targeted and measurable outcomes for gender inclusion within agri-food systems. Another type of perspective or approach that came up was the importance of organizations that build ecosystems around gender lens investing. So what we saw was actors that are not only promoting leadership and business resilience among women-led enterprises, but they're also working with gender-aware investors and fund managers and creating those linkages between SMEs and these investors to increase the flow of capital towards these type of women-led enterprises. And this is really important, especially because there are limitations for women-led enterprises in terms of finance, in terms of the resources and the social capital to be able to create outcomes. So we also saw some organizations playing this critical role of being an ecosystem enabler. Oh, sorry about that. And then another really interesting perspective that came up during this webinar series was how youth-led innovation is critical in accelerating local climate adaptation and sustainable food production. So there was discussion around how young people are active leaders and participants in this transformation and not just passive audiences or beneficiaries, and the importance of co-creating and co-designing programs and solutions together with the young people. And it was underscored that in this youth-led innovation, there is a need for intergenerational knowledge exchange, for example, around indigenous crop production that can help enrich the process of innovation. So this really added on to a really interesting perspective on layers to not just that gender transformation can needs to go hand in hand with also youth-led, more youth-led engagement in the future to make these businesses and to make economic development more resilient. And then we also had some really interesting case studies that came up during this webinar series. So we saw that Gibana, which is a fair trade company working in Burkina Faso, among other areas. And they're investing in inclusive value chains for mango and cashew. And the limitation that they were addressing was a limited participation by women cooperatives within these value chains. And they focused on providing more decision-making and leadership training to these women cooperatives, which led to increasing their confidence, self-confidence, as well as their initiative to expand towards more types of livelihoods, for example, going towards Shea production or agroforestry. We also saw the trainer model being used in DRC to advance the gender makes business sense plus training module. And here, this is under this model, they certify trainers within communities so that this approach can be advanced and integrated more deeply within the entrepreneurs. And as a result, the participants of these trainings reported impacts in terms of improved gender awareness in households and businesses, enhanced self-confidence for young women, and there was also an indication around some personal level transformations. For example, participants reported starting new businesses, improving family communication, or taking leadership roles. Another interesting case study that came out was around the agroecological regenerative cocoa project. And this was interesting because it reflected that not all um, agribusinesses or enterprises have a uniform journey towards integrating gender transformation within their business models. And this initiative, although didn't start with an explicit gender focus, but very soon realized that women in these communities were key enablers or key forest stewards, and therefore they worked together with men and women cooperatives to comply with deforestation regulations by the EU, which led to an increased certification as well as higher productivity and incomes for women in the community. And lastly, in terms of the case studies, we heard from Forest Africa in Zambia, who are working with youth as well as rural women as key harvesters and suppliers. And they're commercializing the indigenous wild fruits value chain within Zambia. And this has led to an increase in income for these communities. They have introduced new nutritional products. They have expanded markets, reaching out to many more retail outlets, and has also resulted in more biodiversity benefits. So all of these case studies reiterated that gender and inclusion of youth, gender, women, with men as key allies is really important to transform gender norms, which is not only beneficial in terms of improving the social equity within the communities, but also in terms of creating more economic value and more productivity when it comes to and more sustainable agri-food systems. And while we were assessing, looking at holistically at all these case studies and approaches that came up during this webinar series, we realized that we could benefit from including a few new voices and a few new perspectives to this discussion, and which is why today we have two new speakers who will be sharing their insights on how gender transformative approaches have helped within their own work. So we have Adelphine from INM Bank, and she is going to reflect on um, how gender and social inclusion is integrated not at just at their bank level, but also within their clients as well as in the way they design loan products. And Jean-Luc is also here from Spiderbit, who is going to talk about who's from an agribusiness, but a technology service provider. So he's going to talk about how the different needs and preferences of women value chain actors are embedded in terms of designing their service offering, and how they also integrate gender inclusion across their company. So I'm really happy to introduce you to both of them, and I'll give the floor to Adelphine to share her reflections on this topic.
Adelphine, if you can hear us, you can unmute. Sorry, you're still on mute. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Adelphine Mudashamagira, the ESG specialist at I&M Bank Rwanda. And it's my pleasure to share with you a brief reflection of our journey on how we are integrating gender lenses in sustainable finance, particularly supporting the food system value chain and the SME financing. Next slide, please. At the I&M Bank Rwanda, we are driven by our sustainability, which recognize that our strategy, which recognize that diversity, equity, inclusion, it is central to our value and culture. In addition to this, we are also aligned with international and national strategies, considering the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG number 5, which speaks to gender equity, but also the SDG number 8, which speaks to decent work. But again, we do focus on international labor organizations, mainly the Agenda 2030, which really strengthen women by highlighting different women opportunities. So I&M Bank Rwanda, it is committed to an inclusive workplace whereby diversity, people, different people are valued, respected, but again, empowered. In regard to this, when we reflect on our everyday activities, we try to engage different women's, but again, when we look at our portfolio, we have come to conclude that mainly gender-led and gender-inclusive SMEs, they have shown a better performance when it comes to credit repayment, which even may goes up to 90%. But also we have seen that gender-inclusive client, they record a higher productivity in their revenue, which may goes up to 25%. And generally, as even you look at general level, you realize that between 60 and 70%, there are women which are employed in agri-food system. And it is really clear that once they are empowered, once they are strengthened, now they can contribute to an improved value chain. Next slide. And when we reflect at the current practices at the I&M Bank, we integrate gender and social inclusion using different approaches, starting from bank level. Or as you can see, we have a very well representation among male and females. Those are the data coming from 2021 up to 2024, where you can see the gender distribution across the employees in the bank, which goes up to 87% female vis-a-vis of the remaining percent for men. Then you also realize that the senior management, who are women, across different years from 2021 up to 2024, it goes up to 37%. And when you look at the representation of gender at body level, you also realize that we do have around 33% of female representation. Now, which shows that at bank level, given that strategy, we really have that leadership which support gender and social inclusion. A next approach, it goes up to the portfolio level. Next slide, please. Yes, at portfolio level also, we do a kind of due diligence whereby we make sure that across the value chain, specifically different clients, SMEs, companies that we are financing, we do conduct agenda and social issue integration due diligence, whereby we are able even to assess what is the roles which are occupied by women's, what is the labor conditions, how is the inclusion in the value chain, and so on. But again, after through the value chain, again, we do conduct gender sensitive monitoring during the site visit. That is a kind of post financing whereby again we do a kind of monitoring. And when you map at portfolio level, you can see that we are able to segregate as per different segments, sectors, agri, but again, we are able to record different segments of based on gender that has been financed. For example, you can see that in 2024, we have been able to disburse around 564 million to claim a smart agriculture project, and around 19 billion, which has gone to generally to agriculture clients in different value chains. And again, specifically for women individual clients, around 16 billion, and specifically 7.3 billion, which has gone to financing women-led SMEs. This communicates a very important information. Yes, the figures are not very high, but it shows that having this basis, it's something which can be improved, as also across the value chain, we are able to see how much women's, which one are in management positions, and so on. As I move to the conclusion, we also have an approach of considering different products, specifically those ones that cater or that speaks to women financing. We have got one product with the strategy even to have more products that really cater for women, because women, when it comes to financial institutions, you realize that they have that particularity. They face a number of challenges, mainly access to collaterals or even financial literacy. That is the reason why we do have some products which are tailored for them with flexible collaterals, but also other non-financial support. So in partnership with different partners, we have been able to have some of the portfolio guarantee, but again, the raw costs products, they support agriculture, but again, that also speaks to women, specifically SMEs. So as I go to the conclusion, it is clear that the gender lens financing, it is, I may say, it is really stronger than ever, because when you finance, you consider women as customer, when you consider them as a reader, when you consider them as an employee, this really contributes to higher productivity. But again, this can unlock different opportunities for growth, resilience, but again, sustainable development. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adelphine. Thanks for sharing your insights. I will give the floor to Jean-Luc to continue his reflections.
Thank you, Samaa. My name is Jean-Luc Masengesho. I'm from Spiderbit, project manager. Spiderbit is a tech company that has different solutions in agriculture. And among the solutions that we have in agriculture, we have Shambasys, which is an AI and an IoT farm advisory system. And also we do have other systems that support farmers, market access and cooperative management, So all are the solutions that have been developed by Spiderbit. Next. On the side of agritech, there are some of the challenges that are still that we are still facing, especially on the side of gender integration and technology, because we always deal with the farmers, working with farmers in rural areas, where most of these farmers uh, they are not familiar with technology. So this is one of the challenge where there is low digital literacy, and specifically this is for rural farmers. Also, once from the side of awareness, we often visit farmers from the rural areas, but we found that farmers, they don't know these technologies which are supporting them. So this also shows that there is still a challenge, especially on the awareness for the technologies in the rural areas, because some they might hear that there is a technology that is supporting them, but also they need people who go there on the ground, show them this is the technology, so this is also another challenge as an agri-tech company that we are facing from scale up to other areas. The third one is the unequal access to resources. Here in Rwanda, most of the farmers, they are working in a cooperative, and from there, some of the farmers, they have a feature phones, which means that using internet is still an issue. So this is also a challenge because most of these systems, they run on online. So which is also a challenge, but we try to solve this challenge, see other alternative. At least most of these farmers uh, can use our solutions. Third one is the unstable internet. In some areas, internet is not stable, which also become barrier to rural areas farmers, because most of these farmers, they are located in the rural areas. Next. From Spiderbit, we do have the approaches where we integrate gender on the company level, but also on the client level. We do have internship. We provide internship program where in every year we have 4 cohorts, and from there we develop the talents from the young men and women on the IoT and AI, where they come and learn and also go on the ground with the knowledge that can support the society. This is one of our strategy where we provide the internship to the young graduates and young talents, so they can grow on the side of technology, but based on agriculture specifically. Also from our agri-tech solution, we do have IHAHO, as I said, which is connecting farmers with the buyers. And from that, it has more than 19,000 users who are using IHAHO daily. And from there, 34% are women, and this is the number of farmers who are specifically in the rural areas. But also we have Shamba Assists, as I said, an AI and IoT. It's a new product which is also where 60% of women, interestingly, are using our solutions. Also, on the company level, we do have the policies and manual, which also help us to, as a guideline, and also gender action plan, which help us to, which is as a roadmap for gender inclusion and the integration in our company. For the client level, because technology, most of the farmers, they are challenged that they are not familiar with technology. So we try to develop model that is encouraging farmers to adopt the technology. One of them is a credit model where farmers come, mostly women, encouraging women to come, and then we provide them these IoT and AI solutions, and then we provide them the loan for payments after season, after 3 months, after one month, just encouraging women to adopt the technology and the youth. And also, we try to address low digital literacy. Here, we work with different institutions on providing trainings, especially in rural areas, going on the ground, do some of the demonstration of technology so that people get aware of these technologies. And also, we use, because we have farmers who have already adopted our solutions. So these farmers are the ones uh, who are encouraging other farmers to adopt our solution, because women, from our experience, women learn from other women. So this is also other strategy that we use on the client level. From our outcome on gender action plan, through the gender action plan, we've been able to lead to 60% of the adopters of Shamba system to become on the women. This is because women, they are the one who can communicate easily to their colleagues. So when they are meeting in social groups, so they're able to communicate that I have this solution. It is supporting me on this side and this side. So then encouraging other farmers to adopt our solution. And also from our current studies, we have noted that this has increased the confidence of women in agriculture through the data-driven decision, because one of the challenges was to the decision, just farming not only as a routine, but based on the data that have been provided by technology, and also have increased the efficiency on the resource usage, and also the reduction on the production costs. And we have some of the key points that help us to ensure that farmers are adopting our technology. One is a training, as I said. We provide training, and especially because farmers, they don't know technology is, especially in the rural areas, is still at low level. And also we try to familiarize with the language that they use, so that they be familiar with the system and the technology. And secondly, in some of the areas where there is low technology, we have built a USSD system where either farmer is online or offline can use our technology to for any reason, because some of the farmers, they are using feature phones. So we developed a USSD system which support these farmers. And also we work with women champions, especially those who are on social media influencers, so that we can increase the engagement to other farmers, and also share the information of our technology. And lastly, we use other models like WhatsApp, like Facebook page, and other socials, so that we attract also the young men and women, I mean the youth, to to use our technology. Next. Yeah, thank you so much. This is our brief presentation on the agri-tech solution challenges and how we are trying to address the challenges that are in technology from agriculture. Thank you so much. Samaa, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adelphine and Jean-Luc, and also to Samaa for really summing up nicely the whole series. And I've posted all of the links. So we had a total of 6 webinars. So this is our 7th, this one as the wrap up. So we really appreciate that we've had some additional insights today from Adelphine and Jean-Luc. And we have a couple questions that emerged during your presentations in the Easy Retro board. So you're welcome to keep adding there questions, but also under the other columns, which you can reflect as participants on what you have learned and what your main takeaways are of the series, and also what areas can be prioritized in the future to strengthen the gender transformative lens within agribusiness. So you're very welcome to make contributions there. But yeah, and we are always short on time. That's always a challenge. But it was very nice to hear in such depth from these 2 examples. So I'll start with 2 questions for Adelphine. So the first one is, what is the current proportion of loans dispersed to men compared to women in your portfolio? And the second one, are there any strategies currently in place to improve representation of women at the board level where some of the high-level decisions are made? So, Adelphine, I hope those questions are clear. You can also see them on the Easy Retro board, but please come in with brief responses to these 2 questions.
Thank you very much. In regard to the question number 1, which requests the number of men representation at the overall level, I don't have the exact number, but you still realize that men and men-led businesses still having a higher percentage across the portfolio, specifically once comes to different sectors, including trade and finance, manufacturing. But that is even the reason why now we are talking about the gender responsive practices, empowering women, so that really we make sure that we increase even the number of women which are bankable by developing different specific products, but again, by engaging different partners, development partners, to make sure that all those barriers that women still have can be bridged, or maybe they can fit into our either existing products, but those ones that are specifically tailored for them. I hope I have answered to the question. Yeah. So
Yep,
the
thank
second
you.
one, the second one.
The second was in regard to the strategies to improve representation of women in the board. So you had shown statistics where women are about 30% of leadership. I think I remember that. But are there strategies or mechanisms in place to also improve the representation at the highest level?
Yes, as I have already highlighted, this is driven by the bank strategy, under which we even have the pillar that speaks to culture and transformation, and that have different initiatives. But as you can understand, having women at board level, it also depends on a number of factors. That is a high level requirement, but having that 3%. But when you look at the bank level, you realize that we have gone up to above 47% of female representation in senior management at bank level. But once it comes to the bank level, it depends on a number of factors, but really the bank is committed because even our strategy, it is really focusing on equity inclusion, but again, the gender equality. So it's a
Thank
journey, and really the bank has this commitment really to improve. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Adelphine. So there is one more question for you, but I'll go to Jean-Luc. So two questions for you. Do users have to pay for using the technology, this Shamba Assist, or what is your business model? And then the second question, of the strategies you have implemented, which ones have worked best, or which ones have been most effective in your experience for engaging women? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Um, we do have, of course, farmers they pay, but it's based on the solution because we have different solutions. We have Ihaho. Ihaho is a platform that is connecting farmers with the buyers. So farmers who are using this platform, it's free. It's free unless other users like agro dealers, agro processors, and others who are in the value chain, they pay some amount of money. But farmers to use Ihaho on market access, on looking for buyers of their produce, is free. But once it comes to Shamba Assist, the farmers they pay on installments because sometimes farmers in Rwanda, especially smallholder farmers, might not be able to afford the technology buying one-off. So now we develop a model, a credit model where farmer get the solution, the technology on credit, and they pay on the installment after harvesting for the first season, after harvesting for the second season, so that every farmer can be or can get the technology on easy way. These are the one of the model that we are using, and it's one. Moving to the question number two, it's one of the model which seem to be successful because technology is sometimes the technology is very expensive. So in that line, we try to think how we can reduce the production costs so that it can be affordable to every farmer. But above that, we also add that credit model, and which is also an add-on to the women and youth, encouraging them to adopt the technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Jean-Luc. I'm sure you'd be willing to take some further questions. Maybe you put your contact information on your slide. So maybe if there's follow-up questions, people are welcome to reach out. So I do see one question here if there's an evaluation that was done via quantitative or qualitative methods on the impact of the gender sensitive and plus training programs that Samaa mentioned. So this is a GIZ program by the Agribusiness Facility for Africa. So certainly we could reach out to them and see what kind of evaluation has already been completed for those training programs. I would expect at least some, because this is a quite long-running program. So it actually, the gender mixed business sense training started under an AUDA NEPAD joint program in South Africa and then got shifted to the Agribusiness Facility for Africa within GIZ. So it's been really running for almost 6 years now, I think, maybe even longer. So I think there might be an opportunity to link up and get some of those insights. And I also think that connects well to something that was posted in the chat about kind of lessons learned and overall good practices coming out of this series that each of these different cases, including the ones we heard from today, might be able to contribute to and then be able to serve as really nice lessons for all the participants and other stakeholders. So that's certainly something we would want to keep in mind. So for the sake of time, we now want to take the opportunity, and thank you again to both of our speakers and to Samaa for summing up really nicely the series. So we have a few of our past speakers from other webinars here today. Not everyone could make it, and of course, we understand that this is also a busy time of year. But to those who are here in the room, and I might call on you, so get prepared. You know who you are if you've been a past speaker. If you could please, and maybe we can start with Jovita. I know you're short on time. Yeah, if we can start, maybe we want to ask the same question to all of you just to get a bit of reflection and lessons, but from your work or kind of building on what you presented, how do you plan to deepen integration of gender transformative approaches within your work in agribusiness and investing? So we can give you the floor, Jovita, to start off, and then I'll go to two others that we have here today.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you very much. And good morning from my side of the globe. I'm right now in Peru, in the Amazon rainforest, very far away in very beautiful scenery. And let me first start with this, that it has been a wonderful experience to be part of these seminars. I hope next year there will be a lot more opportunities also to participate and to learn also from various initiatives. So as Samaa mentioned, I presented a couple of weeks ago in one of the seminars the case of a project I'm leading in the Amazon rainforest in Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador called Agroecological Regenerative Cocoa. And if you remember, I presented a case study with three highlights. Why do I think that this project is very new and very innovative? The first was this consortium we have still with the private sector is a French chocolate company, three cooperatives, cocoa cooperatives in Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador, and us as a research center. So you know that a lot has been said, but unfortunately there are still very few successful case studies of participation of a business sector and this kind of development projects. The second point I mentioned was our zero deforestation strategy. You know, this EUDR regulation from the European Union, and we started actually the project before this regulation took place, and all the discussions also started. This was back in year 2000, and we managed to install this monitoring, zero deforestation monitoring system in these three cooperatives, and actually starting reporting the traceability to consumers in Europe, to chocolate consumers in Europe. And my third point was about the applied research. Applied research from us as a scientific organization towards market needs and towards also consumers' needs, final consumer needs. As for gender, I mentioned our agroforestry experience. We had a couple of workshops where we asked farmers from these three cooperatives what will be their ideal species for agroforestry systems. And since we did these workshops in a timing where mostly men could participate, actually, and all of them mentioned highly like cash crops or timber species like mahogany, for example. But then we did a workshop with the participation in a different time slot, with the participation of mostly women farmers. And then we realized that the species were completely different, like fruits, like medicinal plants, which are, of course, very important for food and nutritional security of the local population. So what we did, this was back in year 2000, we actually changed the entire supply system to these nurseries, what the free cooperatives have. And and we had a very positive experience since always like fruits and medicinal trees are very helpful for local economy, kind of supporting the cocoa production. So we had a lot of women with a very success stories also selling this species, with fruits, and also having additional income. This has been also reported to the buyer, to this chocolate company Kaoka. And since we are now in the process of elaborating a QR code on the chocolate bar, so consumers in Europe can trace this the production, where from their chocolates come from, and we are mentioning these stories and with also some images, and it's very nice to see. All this value chain we're dreaming about, and through the gender lens and gender perspective. So yeah, I guess this is from my side. Thank you. I don't know if there are some questions, maybe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yavita. I don't know. I think it's really amazing to hear also how long you've been pursuing this and really learning about how to be more gender transformative over time. I mean, even just these small changes you mentioned, like the timing of the sessions, that can really make a big difference. And now also with these new regulations on how maybe different women might be differently also impacted. So you've really been there's a whole wealth of information just from your experience with this in this region and with cocoa. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any questions from the audience, but otherwise, Ojong, you're also welcome to take over. We also want to hear from maybe one or two other past speakers. So before that, maybe Ojong, you're welcome to take the floor. Oh, somehow I can't hear you, Ojong. I don't know.
Can
I
you
hope
hear me now?
yes, now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I was saying just to keep the flow going, maybe we can invite the other speakers to share their highlights, but also how they've been able to deepen integration of GTAs or gender transformative approaches within their work. So maybe I think we have Enna on the call, and Katie, if you're still there, once Enna comes through, we would want you to also share your highlights. Over to you, Enna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you for this invitation, and really amazing to see where we have come from July up till today. So in our work, what we've been doing, we've been integrating the RBET framework in the monitoring and reporting and verification of investments. So really making sure that the investees, the agri-SMEs, they're seeing the impact that they are producing, but seeing the pathway of where they are today and accompanying them through the journey of where they want to be in terms of their ambition. Because oftentimes the funds have very high standards and objectives, and what happens on the ground might not be exactly reporting to those objectives from the beginning, but through the RBET framework, we are able to reassure them that it is a journey, and that even though today they might be at the level of reach, but given the time frame of their investments, this is where they can move on from there. And I think this sometimes what we see is that, the agri SMEs, even though within their realities, they say that, yes, the women make more than 60% of their workforce and so on, but the word gender and social inclusion sometimes brings maybe some fear in terms of being able to achieve these goals. But with the RBET framework, we are able to reassure them that this is a journey and that it's not a straightforward journey and that they can continue on that path. Over.
Thanks so much, Anna. I think what's coming out from this is really around monitoring and evaluation, but also how you guide the ambitions based on their investment portfolio. Katie, it would be good to hear from you. And I know we have Anrita and Sarah. I did see you on the call. Not sure if you're still there, but Anrita and Sarah, if you're there, please just share with us your highlight once Katie is done.
Well, again, thank you so much for the presentations today. It's been, wonderful to be a part of this community. So I'm Katie Tavener, and I'm very grateful for the consulting work I've been able to do with ImpactSF, collaborating both with Samaa and Anna. So regarding future plans, one of the biggest opportunities to deepen gender transformative approaches is simply having better field data. So at my company, QLens, our core mission is turning messy, fragmented field information into trusted intelligence. And when we apply that to gender data, that's when it can really become transformative. So for example, by strengthening field data, we can reveal patterns that agribusinesses and investors rarely see. So women's labor burdens, who's actually making decisions, who can adopt climate smart practices, who controls land, and who really then is building resilience over time. And when these constraints become visible in the data, companies can finally confront and act on inequities that are usually hidden in standard monitoring systems. So in that way, better data doesn't just inform gender work, it enables more ambitious and more accountable transformation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Katie. And I can see the pattern coming out today in terms of data throughout this conversation. And Rita, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here. Ojong, thank you for inviting me. And just like the others, it's been a privilege to be part of this community and part of the process. By way of introduction, my name is Anrita. I work with the Rallying Cry, and we had the opportunity to work with agribusinesses from the CGIAR Food Systems Accelerator, where we supported them to develop and apply gender transformative actions and strategies into their business models. Moving forward, and even through our work, how we intend to deepen this is in two simple ways. Firstly, is to make a direct link using research and evidence from what integrating GSE strategies means for the business. So that means linking it directly to their revenues, access to new markets, and especially access to capital from gender lens investors. And this gets us buy-in from the agribusinesses because they're able to see how taking on these approaches future-proofs their businesses and actually translates into social and economic benefits for them. So that was really great to see how forward and open they were to adopting these strategies. And we've been in touch with them and we've seen actually heard from them. They've reported that these have been transformational for them. The second way is simply through going through the supply chain and identifying factors that may especially be barriers to women and youth that the agribusinesses were not aware of. And this would be things like having economic order quantities, minimum economic order quantities, having trainings where women are unable to access because of their responsibilities back at home in terms of taking care of the home and so on. and also not considering the use of communication tools that women have more access to. So we were able to help them establish which communication tools work the best, and also for them to identify hidden barriers, which they were able to address and have more women and youth participate in their business models and supply chains. In terms of tools, we use the research that was actually done by the CG using the Gender at Work framework. We also relate quite a bit on the 2X global criteria, because that's relevant for investors. And finally, we also looked at how we can use a tool that is very common for businesses, for them to be able to look at the 9 strategic areas and use that for integrating gender transformative approaches into their businesses. And so far, so good. Like I said, we've seen the results, and we're excited to continue working with the businesses to see how this transforms their models in the long term. Thanks, Ojo. Back to you.
Thanks so much. I see we have Sarah on the call. Unfortunately, she's unable to use her mic, so she's going to drop her highlights here later for us to come back to it. But I think now what we want to do is really to open the floor to the participants. And I'm just going to start this by capturing a few of the highlights that have come through. Listening to the speakers, this has been very, intriguing. And I'll start with what Adelphine presented. Looking at her presentation, I think she's really stressing on gender-sensitive monitoring, but this is really an on-site process where they do site visits, but also finding ways of doing inclusive, developing inclusive loan products, which we think is very key for women and other groups of people who are struggling within the value chain. Jean-Luc also took us through how they do JC integration. And this is through their credit model, their digital literacy approach, but also how they create farmer engagements and awareness. And now when we look at what previous speakers have presented to us, we do see Jovita sharing with us very inclusive approaches through gender-sensitive crop selection. And this has really helped them to be able to see what women want, but also what are men looking out for within the value chain. I think a highlight for her is also about how they've been able to collaborate with cooperatives and also bringing in research in that space. What's very insightful for me is how they have worked through traceability. That's key, and it's something that within the business space or lens we often don't talk about. She's also highlighted how zero deforestation strategy or regulations could also help improve the value chain, especially for women, as we've seen from their products. They often rely on medicinal plants, and these are products that actually come from the forest. Enna took us through the Rich Benefits Empower framework, Transform framework. And for them, this is also like a reporting to a monitoring and evaluation reporting tool for investment. And how they've been using this is really to guide clients to be able to see their ambitions through their different investment portfolio. And Katie has highlighted why it's important to have data. This is because it leads to trusted intelligence, allows us to see or explore patterns. And these patterns could often be very subtle, from labor burdens to land rights. We've heard from Anrita, who's taking us through how we can link GTAs directly to markets, but also access to capital, and how they've been able to support SMEs through the supply chain in order to be able to identify subtle barriers. It could be barriers around training, but also how communications to speak the different languages of those within the value chain. And so what we want to do now is really to open the floor to the audience. Do you have questions? What are your highlights going forward? And we have 2 main questions here for you to, you could unmute yourself. You could put this in the chat or use the retro board. We would want to get a sense from you of what you've learned through this journey. What are your main takeaways from this series? Not just a series of today, but the 7 series so far we've been able to cover this year. but also what areas should we be prioritizing as a community of practice in the future so that we continue the journey of strengthening gender transformative lens or approaches in businesses. So this is an open space for us now to discuss these two main points. What is your big takeaway from the different series, but what should we be looking out for in 2026? We want to hear from you so that we make this series even more interesting and reaching the needs of you, audience. We have the floor open. Put up your hand or share with us in the chat. You can also use the retro board. Yeah, I'll also just be checking the retro board to see if any comments or questions are coming in. But let's hear what your thoughts are in terms of strengthening the webinars going forward. What should we be prioritizing 2026 and beyond? Okay, I see a few points coming up. One of them says we need to find a way of supporting SMEs when it comes to adopting these different gender transformative approaches, given the limited budgets that SMEs often operate in or on. We also have a point on measurement of impact. I think that has come out a lot, particularly for the business cases that we've been able to use or present for this year. That's also very interesting. I see a point in the chat saying we should also continue. So Edward, do you want to come off mic and just talk about the point you raised? I think we would have missed that, but if you're willing to share more details on that, that would be good.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. But gender lens investment has just become one of my research interests. And I've been pursuing thought leadership around it, although it is still in its inception stages and a lot of pilot work is going on. But through the forums I've attended and where I've presented some of my work, I just came up with some few pointers about the difference. Because women's leadership is about power and who leads and who decides and who shapes institutions. It's representation, culture, and change, while gender lens investing at the moment is morphing off as something to do with resources and where they go to achieve gender outcomes. So why the distinction matters is that leadership shifts who holds power, while gender lens investment shifts who gets resources. That is what I've gotten in terms of research that I've been doing. So both of them can transform voice and value, but women's leadership builds inclusive decision making, while gender lens investment moves capital toward gender equitable outcomes, and combined they both accelerate structural change. So those were just my few pointers. I can see Catherine is saying this is something she would want us to revisit next year. I hope to dive more deep into that. Thank you.
And with that, we have Edward as one of our speakers for 2026.
Yeah, 2026,
Edward,
sorry.
no, thanks so much for this. And we see this coming out clearly, thoughtful leadership, but also if we could, get borrow into your knowledge next year. And if you can share most of these outcomes with us, maybe if there's a case study, it would be useful for you to put that together, and definitely the community of practice will be in touch to get you on board. But hope you're part of the community of practice and you've joined us so that you get all the updates. But we'll keep in touch for that. Do we have other? Okay, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Edward. Do we have other participants here who would want to share thoughtful ideas for next year webinar? What should we be looking out for? Okay. Any question? Any area where we need clarity? I see a question from Emma asking for the focal point. Emma, we are going to drop, we are going to drop the link in the chat for you to reach out to specific people within the community of practice if you do want that. But you can also register and join us to get all the updates. Okay, I think with no further questions or comments, we've taken note of potential topics for next year. We would definitely go through some of the insights we've received, and that would also help us shape the series for 2026 and beyond. Hannah, over to you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ojong, for really leading us through this discussion and also for picking up the key points mentioned by past speakers. So I really just want to echo what Ojong also said, that you're still welcome to add to the ESA Retro board, so it'll stay open for you to add some ideas. You're also welcome to keep posting here. I see, for example, Matilda also has suggested a topic of gender integration in climate financing in particular. So please keep the ideas coming. I've just posted the link to join our community of practice and also just the general gender, social inclusion, and youth um, accelerator link. So there's a whole host of resources on this platform. So you can explore the Gender Hub and go through there. We're really excited to have this be an ongoing conversation. So these seven webinars have really opened up our perspectives, I think, too. And as much as we have ImpactSF specifically working in this regard, I think we're still seeing this as a relatively new frontier for gender transformative methodologies. And so within our COP, we're also really excited about engaging more with all of you and some more topics. And if you would also like to present, so Kathy also mentioned this in the chat, if you would like to present some ideas yourself or from your organization, or also have some ideas for potential speakers, please do contact us. I put my email in the chat, but you're also, once you join the community of practice, you're on it's called a D group, and you're part of a forum where you can also post these ideas. So I already see some people have posted the same thing on the Easy Retro board. So it's really nice to see measurement of impact coming in strongly. So we heard Katie's call for data, and I think that's really a very important one. Then we also have how can SMEs adopt some of these approaches considering limited budgets. So I think that also comes into play with what Enna was mentioning, that it can be quite intimidating, and how do we actually support agri SMEs in pursuing more gender and social inclusion just as part of their operating model, rather than being seen as an additional burden, but rather that it's seen as really more effective for their work. Also in terms of evidence for the private sector. So I think a lot of us in this virtual room might also have experience with that, but how do we really more directly from the research community engage with the private sector? Gender integration and climate finance was mentioned, also corporate social due diligence directive. Yes, I think this was you, Emma, posting this, and how this can actually play a role in the larger EU space, for example. So I think we have lots of new ideas, and we really appreciate that you stuck with us for an hour and a half for this session. This was intentional to allow for more engagement, and also looking back and inviting some of the past speakers to give their reflections and lessons, and also how they want to pursue this more intensely and deeply going forward. So. So with that, I think we gain these last 5 minutes, unless someone is very excited to raise his or her hand and step in. But I think I also just want to thank Adelphine, Jean-Luc, and Samaa, and Ojong again for being the four panelists or four main contributing speakers today, and to all of you again for taking the time. So let's stay engaged on this and let's have a follow-on of this series, continuation of this series next year. So thank you everyone, and also wishing you a nice end of the year. Happy holidays. It seems very early to be wishing that, but we might not have the chance in this space to see each other again. So all the best to everyone.